Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, AtmaNirbhar Bharat is a vision of the government to make India self-reliant and independent. Under this program, the government has initiated various policy actions to boost Indian indigenous design, development, and manufacture of defense equipment in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, delve into the transformative journey and chart the course for India's self-reliance in the defense sector with our upcoming panel discussion now, which is on success of Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense and the way forward. This discussion promises to offer fresh insights into India's strides towards defense self-sufficiency, shedding light on the vital roles played by diverse stakeholders. And to take this discussion forward, I'd like to invite our esteemed panelists on stage. Lieutenant General Manjinder Singh, YSM, VSM, DCIDS, PP&FD, HUIDS. Please welcome him with a huge round of applause. Our next panelist is Retired Major General P.K. Saini, VSM, and Principal Advisor, SIDM, and Ms. Shruti Kharbanda, Advisor, Startup India. And to moderate this session, I'd like to invite on stage retired Air Marshal Dr. Rajeev Sachdeva, AVSM, Council Member, USI. He has served as a Deputy Chief of Integrated Defense Staff and officiated as Additional Secretary Air at DMA MOD. He's also a Distinguished Fellow at I2P2M and Certified Management Instructor by IMA. Let's please welcome them once again with a huge round of applause. Speakers, moderator, I request you all to please come forward for a quick picture.
Today we have an excellent combination on the stage. One is a serving Lieutenant General who looks after the entire policy procurement for the Indian Armed Forces. In his office, everything is decided as to how and who wants how much and where to go. The entire documentation happens in his office. Then we have somebody from the SIDM. They are the ones who actually give us the equipment to fight the war. And then we have somebody who's still knocking at the door of the SIDM as a startup and to get into them, because we have those who are going to use the military equipment, seniors who actually are settled in this field, and then somebody who's going to go in. So we'll request this is PP&FD to start the talk, and we'll take on rest a little later. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, the panelists and the members who are here. At the outset, I must compliment USI for organizing this event, the Indian Military Heritage Festival. And over the last 2 days, a large number of topics have been touched, which matter to us a lot, and also the support of all the members who organize it. It's an excellent initiative which will go forward. Today, this session is devoted to a very important aspect, success of Atmanirbharta in armed forces and way ahead. So I'll try to cover this, what are the initiatives being taken by the government to deliver this, and more importantly, I'll focus more on what are the weaknesses and what should be the way forward. So India is possibly the only nation in the globe which has land disputes with nuclear-powered adversaries on both fronts. As a nation, India cannot let its guard down even for a moment, and armed forces need to possess capabilities to thwart misadventures. These capabilities till recently were largely acquired through imports. Self-reliance in defense, manufacturing all types of weapons, munition, equipment is an essential prerequisite for developing a true strategic autonomy and real military power. For long, India was a major arms importer and depended heavily on the foreign OEMs for military hardware. With the articulation of Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India vision by the government, the Indian process of all types of military equipment has got tremendous impetus and traction. The government's vision to transform defense sector is not just achieving self-reliance, but also to boost the exports for defense products. In fact, defense sector has been identified as a key component to drive the promote even economy, to increase its share to 25% in GDP, which is a very, very big stone. Over the past 9 years, the government has taken significant policy decisions to encourage the participation of domestic private industry in defense manufacturing. It has also simplified procedures, delegated powers, enunciated new schemes, and earmarked dedicated funds to accelerate the additional efforts. Though still the work is in progress, together with MOD, the services, DRDO, DPSUs, and private industry, been able to make a significant progress over the last few years. It would be apt to say that India as a nation is on an accelerating journey on the opportunity of innovation, transformation, and we need to work hard onto these. We plan to become major players in the field of manufacturing, especially defense manufacturing, and defense research and development through various range of policy changes, government initiatives, private industry, and entrepreneurs. Putting across pragmatically, the nation has just taken a U-turn from import-oriented defense manufacturing equipment to self-reliance with slew of initiatives taken in the past. Some of the initiatives which are there is firstly the budgetary support. Starting from 2021 financial year, 58% of the defense budget for capital acquisition was earmarked for the private industry. And has continued to improve now to 64%, 68%, and this financial year, 75% budget has been earmarked to be only manufactured in India. As also 25% of the R&D budget dedicated to be given to private industry. So this budgetary support will encourage manufacturing by private industry as also encourage the defense productions. DAP 2020. DAP 2020 came as an enabling document which ensured that the maximum of the innovation, Indianization process starts it, and it has been flexibly reworked. 3 times iterations have happened, 3 major changes happened into place, and many more ideas which came from various people, participants have been added into it. Defense innovation process and Division of Defense Procurement Manual. DPM, which is a major document on which the services depend, is of 2009 vintage. With efforts of the services, headquarters ideas, along with the Defense Finance, MOD Finance, this document is under overhaul and revision. It will come out shortly. We're in the final stages of the iterations of the Honorable RM's office. It has a new chapter called Defense Innovation Procedure, which will indigenize the in-service equipment. The DAP, which deals only capital acquisition, is only the new procurement adds capabilities. But military has to go to war today. They have to fight with what is held with them. So in that case, all the equipment which is a foreign region, maybe a Russian, Israeli, or even Western Europe, all this equipment will be available to indigenize assemblies, sub-assemblies with these provisions which are coming up in DPM 2023 now. A major document is going to come out shortly to enforce this. Ease of doing business. In order to encourage your doing business and implement simplification, delegation, reduction in timelines, making process industry friendly as possible, a large number of measures in form of JVs, SPVs, foreign OEM tie-ups have been done so that our industry can get enhanced and they can do their part. Srijan portal. The DDP maintains Srijan portal in which all the policies are available to anyone to pursue. All the PILs, anything which we want the industry to work on is available online so that it is available to every user to make it happen. If we have to rate the success in AtmaNirbhar Bharat, it is a continuous endeavor to achieve, pursue proactively, progress, and diligently participate in key initiatives for achieving self-sufficient defense while engaging with all stakeholders. Armed forces have also been exploiting these policies and they have also encouraged this. It's not only the government is involved, the military itself was involved also. The first thing which came out was PIL, Positive Indianization List. Till today, 5 have come out over the last 3 years. Total number of items, 509, have been listed into it, which will not be produced and will not be procured from foreign vendors. The total cost, if we have to take it off these items, over next 10 years will be 12 lakh crore rupees of these 509 items only which have been listed in the PILs. So this is available on the Srijan portal, and the people who want to invest in the defense manufacturing can see those things. They can start working on this PI list and come up with new ideas how to solve these problems. Make projects. 3 types of make projects available: Make 1, Make 2, Make 3. Everyone is available over it. Make 1 is supported by the government with 70% of the government funding up to 250 crores. Make 2 is a design developed by industry itself. And we have gained major success in Make 2, in fact. Large number of products are now coming into services which Make 2 route, and various factories are going into it, and Make 3 is designed well by R&D. The major projects which have come under Make are like Indian Light Tank, autonomous surveillance, drone swarms, autonomous combat vehicles, laser beam riding manpads, anti-tank mine tandups for Army, Uran SSM complex, marine diesel engine, 127 mm medium caliber gun, 76 mm SRGM, autonomous combat vehicles for Indian Navy, airborne electro-optical pods, airborne stand-off jammers, 70 ground to air rockets, simulators for Apache and Chinooks, and tail rotor blade for Me-17. These are some of the items which have come through Make Retd listed here, which shows that we have moved quickly on the path of Indianization, and these products are being delivered by own defense industry, which is indigenously built in India. IDEX. Another initiative taken was Innovation in Defense Excellence, in which various challenges was posed to innovators, selectors, and they also made a major success. We had about 9 IDEX challenges have been spread out, and they have delivered so many 276 challenges posed, out of which 224 projects have been accepted by the services till today. And this is going to get further refined. We have seen problems, IDEX will cover next part, that how we want to refine this process of IDEX also, so that more innovators, more incubators, and defense initiatives can come into it. TDF, the Technology Demonstration Fund. This is another route in which up to 50 crore projects are funded, and they are also seen a major problem, mostly in the Aeronautical Design Agency and the AMCA project. About 56 parts have been developed by this TDF route. Design and development by DRDO. This purely DRDO route in which major technologies which we feel are being designed and developed, and almost 100 projects are on mission mode available in this DRDO D&D projects. Organizational changes. Based on the requirement of the government that services also have organized themselves, each service has now a design and development directorate, like the ADB in Army, Defense Industry Cell in the Navy, and similarly in the Air Force. We have dedicated organizations which are looking into this. They are having interface with private industry. They go to the industry, map the industry, and do everything possible so that the industry needs are also met. Initiatives like Aero India, Defense Expo has been enhanced to large extent. Just to mention that in Aero India 2023, 800 industrialists had put up their shop here. And large number of foreign vendors were coming to India, in which they are looking at opportunity, how to do business in defense industry in that thing. In the last about 6 months, I have seen a change. Initially, sometime in January, February, when we used to meeting these foreign vendors, they were looking at to make joint venture with Indian companies. However, today of late, when the same vendors come back, they are likely to make their own entity in India. So there is a difference in here. If they make their own company here, like already you are knowing, Boeing India is already established. When they do that Boeing India, our Indian IPR will not be available to us. However, if they do the JV with us, then the technology transfer will take to us. The effort should be to make JVs so that that company gives the technology to us also, and IPR will reside with us. So this difference I have seen in last 6 months only happening from Aero India, which is in February, March, and today same companies come and they want to establish their own shop in India. These are few challenges, few of the initiatives which government has set, but this is known to most of you, so I will focus more on what are the problems and what should the way ahead. Firstly, what should government do to promote this whole ecosystem of defense manufacturing? You already know that DRDO reforms have been already ordered by the government. But the problem lies where in DRDO? The first and foremost problem which you identified is the allocation of business rule. The Secretary D&D and Chairman DRDO wears a common hat, which is a basically conflicting requirement. To our mind, Secretary D&D should be overarching, and there should be 3 systems into it. Secretary D&D is separate. There is an SA to RM. Similarly, SAs, that's scientific advisor, right up to service chief, theater commanders, army commander should be available. That is second chain. And thirdly, Chairman DRDO. Broadly, Secretary D&D will decide who should look into which technology. Based on the competency mapping of the private industry also, some technology can be developed by private industry. So that will be given to private industry. Certain niche technologies should be given only to DRDO, which can be developed by Chairman DRDO. And something which you have to take it from foreign countries. That also Secretary D&D should decide. So this is one major recommendation which we have given, and government is seized with this. If this happens, the alignment of technology development in the country will be falling into 3 categories. Something by the private vendors, something by DRDO, and something by the TOT from foreign vendors. The committee is seized with this, and many other recommendations like this to reform DRDO. So Chairman DRDO should focus only on those tasks which are given to him by the Secretary D&D and does not go to others. In addition, how to hunt for talent. We have huge talent in the country, but talent is leaving our country and going to foreign shores. So we have to look at how to retain that talent. Like today, if we see that we are getting G401 engine for aircraft, do we have the trained manpower? the ecosystem is available, that will the aircraft engine will be produced so easily? How are IITs aligned, ITIs, the technicians, how are they getting trained? How will the ecosystem, the whole engine will develop? Just getting TOT is only one part of it. So aligning the academia, aligning the new talent, ensuring reverse brain drain are all part of the whole ecosystem, which will make us happen that technology development is taking shape into product formations. So all the initiatives have been given. Similarly, concept of scientist soldier. Today, the services do have about, I would say, 400 officers posted to DRDO, but most of them are not involved in products, in the manufacturing of they are not the managers of the product which is being developed. So this scientist soldier concept has to come in, where actually the technology today, what happened, technology come first, we drive products of it, and tactics come third. We're looking at a system total complete overall. If we have to go ahead of the technology curve in the world, if we follow this, we are always behind, because people are developing technology, we are driving our tactics after developing product out of that. Let us look at tactics-driven technology development, in which tacticians will decide how I want to fight war next 15 years. That will first decide it. Having decided how I want to fight war, and then technology should be developed. A simple example can be, let's take manned-unmanned team of an armored squadron. If I say that of 15 tanks, I'll only man 2 tanks, I'll have 4 dummy tanks and 7 autonomous tanks. This is my way, I want to fight like that tomorrow. Then I will be able to develop that system, which will be Indian system itself, and we don't depend on anybody else. So these thoughts are in the pipeline, in which the tactics-driven technology will be delivered to the government, and then all ecosystem will deliver toward that. But that has to be delivered by tacticians who want to fight the way you want to fight. Because if you are copying others, we only stay behind the curve. To rise up, we have to those levels which are being explored by others, deliver own tactics based on a history, our own mythology, the way we have fought our strategy. So those ideas are coming into place, in which we'll be able to take head lead in others. So this is a thought as far as the technology concerns are concerned. As far as the Make, IDEX, PIL projects are concerned, the major problem which is happening is that we are not able to get the products in time. So we have to have the centers of excellence, which include some labs, some in IITs, the schools of sciences, all that being clubbed, the whole mapping is being done between the government MOD itself, MHA, and the Education Ministry and DST, in which aligned laboratories of DRDO with aligned laboratories, centers of excellence in academia, and the science and technology will cluster themselves as together. So the clusters of excellence will be able to deliver new technologies, and that thought is already working on. About 20 centers of excellence have been formed, and list is available on the DDP portal. Now, based on these, the products will be delivered to the services. Next is this problem of the private industry. We are seized with this, that presently, because the chairman DRDO, DDP, all form part of the defense act, and there is a clash of interest. The private industry feels that there is a protection being given to DPSUs, and that is already under process of being solved. We are giving recommendation that there should be a GS level officer who will look at only at the private industry. The problem private industry will be represented in all fields, so that their trial testing, the share in various areas cannot be overruled by the people who have private criminal trust. And protection to DPSU is going to come over by 2025. By 2025, DPSU will be corporatized fully. There will be no government funding available to DPSUs. So beyond that, if they have to survive in the competitive world of private industry, they have to start performing. And if they can't perform, then private industry will overtake and they may perish. The government funding will be taken away by 2025. Similarly, the production capacity. Like BDA is the only missile producer which is there today, the production capacities are highly inefficient, or I would say not meeting the requirement of services. And the future of warfare lies in the missile warfare with accuracy, highly enhanced seekers, and better accuracy to be delivered. So this one sector where private industry can come in a big way will be very, very welcome part. Similarly, the tax reforms. This recommendation already been given to the government that today the private industry is taxed even at the VAT. There's a lot of tax in the CST, interstate tax, which they have to pay. If you want to make defense a strategic industry and to promote it, a huge reform set is required. Similar to what was done software. India is today software leading industry. So similarly, you give to promotion to the defense industry, you have to give them some incentives. Whatever ways we are given to them, it can be in tax, it can be in CSR relaxation, and many other relaxations the government can give. The private industry gets a boost into that. Defense industrial corridors. So this defense, 2 corridors have been announced by the government. But I have gone personally and seen, I went to Lucknow also, I went to Chennai also to see how the defense industrial corridors are doing. There's a lot of confusion in these industrial corridors. There is no, I would say, policy incentive or policy infusion how you want to guide these industrial corridors. It has been left to state governments. So we again come up with a kind of policy in which we are recommending that let us the defense industrial corridor be made on the elite system. Like one corridor will look after one particular system. One will look after missiles. One will look after, let's say, electronics. One will look after aerospace industry. So it should be core competency dictated within the corridors. There are 8 to 9 nodes. Each node should have one core competency of major industry. The major industry is to be nominated by the government, and then other tier 2, tier 3 industry will come around that. The whole ecosystem, accordingly, trial testing, ranges, all the things will come up in that core competency designated corridors. In addition, there are many areas which should also be given the same status, like we have in Karnataka. Bangalore is already coming up as an aerospace defense industry corridor. Similarly, in Maharashtra, near Pune, the land mobility, artillery, heavy engineering. In Telangana, near Hyderabad, a lot of industries already coming up. They also should be added. So these corridors are then having core competency. They develop onto that, and then subsequently they can carry on that. So this also we have recommended to the Honorable RM Office. Hopefully this should also take shape. Reforms in QA. This also is one burning topic where all industries have been facing this problem. They are not getting ranges, they are not getting reforms. So self-certification is way ahead. So if an industrialist has to make his own self-certification, he has to be honoring that terms and conditions. The failure rates will affect his own reputation. So not major components, but large number of components can be given by self-certification by the industrialist. It is happening on the foreign side. When you take a product from foreign side, we don't ask any QA indices. But the same product from Indian vendor, we are having strict processes. So this also is being reviewed and hopefully should come up in that. Trials and testing. This is one major problem of the industrialists in the defense. And that's where we are trying to say that make it totally privatized. That like TBR or not, should have multiple shifts to be manned. Not only 8 hourly shift. There should be 3 shifts so that trial testing continues. The booking of the site should be online and fair play to DPSU should be given. Hopefully this should also see the light of the day. These are few things which the government has to do. Now what should industry look at? The first and foremost weaker industry today is that there is no security policy in the defense industry which is coming up. As you know, cyber is a major threat. We've done a kind of, by DCIDS, headquarter IDS has gone around and seen the defense industry. There are very weak cyber security measures being followed by the industrialists in the defense sector. SIDM chairman was requested to come and we have given him the measures what should be implemented for cyber security. Otherwise, your defense secrets is the most lucrative thing by anybody. Similarly, physical security of the industrial complexes is also very, very important. We have to look at it. Putting money into D&D. The incentivization should be there, but the private player has to put in money in D&D, then only the private industry can grow. And many other things that will regard the private industry itself. As far as services are concerned, services are very ambitious GSQRs. They want the moon. So what we are recommended is that have a spiral growth. Come to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, the moon. So the industrialists also can develop in the phase manner, and so the own industry gets emboldened and they get participation. Spentry is then understanding the requirement of the services by the industrialists. This role will be given to services in which they will allow industrialists to come to on-field area, understand the requirement, so that they can design the products like that. That's what the tactics-driven technology products will be coming into services. And not what technology dictates, you try on that. And then these initiatives of DefX, Aero India, and certain interaction will enhance our understanding of each other. So the whole growth of the whole ecosystem is required. Then only what we are aiming at in coming few years will be able to achieve that. So the government, private industry, organs like SIDM, Defense Industry Corridor, and services all have to meet up together ecosystem in which the growth can take place, and then we'll realize our aim of becoming the major defense exporter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think the Deputy Chief has very clearly told us what is the problem statement, and he's also told us that the headquarters are aware of the problem. And he has actually bulleted the entire problems in this Atmanirbhar Bharat in a very, very cryptic form. And he's also said what all changes are happening. In fact, I was in his chair 3 years ago. I didn't know so many changes have happened in the last 3 years itself. So that's a great information which has come to me itself, that so much has transformed. And this is a transformation government where things are transforming faster than you can even imagine. So he's really covered it up. Now let's hear the matured industry part next as to what they have to say to what the Deputy Chief has said. All yours, the stage is yours.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, General Manjinder, for giving a very deep insight into what the government is doing. I shall try and put across my thought process in a slightly structured way so that I don't take more time and we finish it on time. First slide, next slide, please. Okay, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I represent Society of Indian Defence Manufacturers, and I shall focus that Indian defense industry is one of the major constituents of this success story of Atmanirbharta. And what we are as society is nearly 600 of the prime defense industries supported by nearly 12,000 MSMEs. And let me reiterate that MSMEs are the drivers of this success. They are the drivers of defense capability building, and that is why due focus is being given to them. And what we do, it's all listed on the slide, but I will put it in summing it up. We do policy advocacy, resolve procedural networks, assess the industrial capability, bridge information gap, build capacity, and promote international cooperation. That is very important in today's scenario. Next slide, please. Next one. Why is Indian industry so, looking into the defense sector? It answers this one slide. This is what we are today, India as a nation. In the World Forum, you can see we are the 4th largest and nearly account for nearly 4% of the world military expenditure. And that is why there is a commercial venture for Indian industry to see. Next one, please. So let me put across a few fundamentals of this success story. Why is this Atmanirbharta being talked about as a very successful venture by India? The most fundamental issue is sometimes the democratic ways don't work. So the government very aptly gave very clear, unambiguous directions to the stakeholders that we will do it Indian way. There will be no imports, there will be no dependency on any foreign manufacturers or the foreign nations for our needs. And that was the directive which has driven this success story. And it was further reinforced in 2021 by a clear 16-point directive from the Prime Minister's office, which spelled out what we will do and what we will not do. Another important aspect of this success story is the Government of India's trust in our Indian industry. It is very clearly visible, and the Indian defense industry is looked up to for the national security and shaping Indian defense ecosystems. The figures are whatever is stated, but you can add much more to it, and that is our capability. What we talk of $5 billion of exports by 25, I can assure you we may be hitting around 7 billion, the way things are moving in that direction. Most important, there are 3 fundamental stakeholders, users, that is the armed forces, policy advocacy, Government of India, and the manufacturers, that is the defense industry. Despite perceptional differences between all of them for capabilities of each other's, qualities, etc., and hand-holding, there has been a very inclusive, integrated approach to this Atmanirbharta. And all have been on board on this, and that is why we are here as a successful indigenization approach, what we have. And of course, all these are enabled by the commensurate policies of the Government of India. Most important aspect is building up the defense ecosystem. How is the Indian industry seen this as an economic venture, successful economic venture, in addition to being patriots and nationalists? So therefore, all these three drivers have come on board, and that is how this ecosystem has developed. And the last point is this Atmanirbharta or self-reliance, Make in India, has been further accentuated due to the geostrategic environment, both in security and economic turbulences, what is happening in the world all over. This has driven all of us to look at this way. I will go to the next few slides. Now, what General Manjinder has said, I've just concised all these points, what government has done, what headquarter IDS has done, and these are flashed in front of you. These indigenization lists have given a diktat to everybody that you will look at Indian industry, you will buy it from Indian industry, and the quality and the capability is the responsibility of the Indian industry. It is not only the procurement or capital procurement of the new equipment, it is also all the Navratnas or now 16 Ratnas, what we call DPSUs, etc. They have all been directed, and there are similar lists for them also to buy their components and parts from Indian industry. Of course, QR, spiral development, and there is no doubt MSMEs and startups are the core of this success and core of the development of defense systems. So therefore, they are integral part of this story. Most important part of any equipment procurement is post-procurement, its sustenance, its maintenance, its overall. We've been neglecting this, and we've been depending on the foreign partners, and this also has been put a stop. Our entire life cycle concept will be dictated through indigenization, and therefore Indian industry will take care of this up to 5 to 7, maybe 10 years of the life cycle. That is, there are few policies being worked out. Level playing field is very important for the Indian defense industry, and government has taken right steps towards this corporatization of ordnance factories. Now, as General Manjinder said, DRDO again is being reviewed. There are DPSUs which are required to be reviewed. There is HAL to be restructured and work towards a level playing field. I'll just quote an example of one of the very important documents which the armed forces have prepared, that is technological modernization of armed forces. It's a document which clearly enunciates what should DRDO do and what it should not do. DRDO and all DPSUs or all R&D agencies should focus on niche technologies, path-breaking technologies. Let the private industry do the contemporary technologies and current equipment sustenance technologies and alternate systems. And if we follow that, I think we'll be in the right path of furthering our cause, etc. There are other financial burdens which have been taken care of for the Indian industry. Otherwise, there was not a level playing field where the DPSUs and ordnance factories always had a financial edge also vis-a-vis the private industry. Reducing timelines, etc. There is a difference of what policy advocacy is undertaken by the ministry and how it is executed. There is a wide gap still which is prevailing. The policies are very clear. These are the guidelines to be implemented to facilitate procurements or acquisitions. But when it comes at the execution level, there are challenges of interpretation. And when you talk to the industry, these are sometimes harrowing challenges which they narrate, and that is what needs to be bridged. Of course, why private defense industry is growing. There is a trust which it has developed, or because of the users' positivity, Ministry of Defense positivity, and also Indian defense industry seeing economic or a commercial success into these stories. Therefore, that is the trust, and that is how they are looking at this mindset change in the Indian industry. So you will find today, I am as a principal advisor to the society, I get at least 4 to 10 calls a day that every private industry which is into a different civil domain wants to venture into the defense ecosystem. And why it is? Because they are seeing a commercial success stories into these. Next one, please. DAP 2020, or the Defense Acquisition Procurement Manual, it's actually a guideline, and I happen to be lucky to be a part of the core team when it was drafted. Rather, I presented to the DAC and we got it approved. I'm privileged to know it, but let me put across, it's a guideline. The problem is when it's interpreted, it is interpreted as a rule. That is where the problem starts, and that is which we need to address when we look at it. Its review in the next year, that is in 2024. My suggestion, General Khandare sir is sitting here as a principal advisor to the ministry, is that DPM is under final review. We need to align both these documents into some congruency and look at what are the common features and how it can help both the capital as well as revenue procurement. It needs to be addressed. There are challenges of the industry in the revenue procurements. There are other, next one, please. This is why the defense private industry is looking at. We have success stories, whether it is the amount of budget allocations or it is the kind of government support. There is 25% of R&D budget, what General Manjinder talked about. The industry has yet to see the light of the day on this. We've been progressing and time and again addressing to the ministry, give the industry a separate window. There is a conflict of interest by the people who are handling this. So these needs to be separated. Industry is ready to invest into R&D if they have assurance of orders and there is a contribution. So my recommendation on this would be in that sense. Let me also give you a very positive note in that sense. We are meeting a foreign delegation at least once a month. That is the frequency, and sometimes twice a month, which come and meets the Ministry of Defense, the users and us. They are looking for ventures into Indian industry. And as has been brought out, Indian industry would be the drivers in that chair, in the whole process, and they are ready to do it. That is a change what we see it. That is why there is a positivity. Now I'll come to the last slide. See, what is the way ahead? We continue with what we are doing, but at a more better organized pace, better structured pace. And I brought out policy advocacy is easy to communicate and pass. Execution is what is the challenge today. When I'll give you an example how it happens. When we send some equipment for trials, I have been part of the user, I have been part of the Ministry of Defense, and now I am representing industry. When we send an equipment for example, for firing trials, we give it to an organization, whether it is a military organization or a government organization. Instead of focusing only on the firing trials, it starts looking at its engine, its transmission, and puts up a 600 pages of a document. Nobody can pass it on the file if there are issues which are though not required but are on file on that document. That is where we need to address this. Of course, what General Manjinder said, there is need for accountability of Indian industry to be responsible for quality and maintenance and sustenance for a longer period, so that this whole trial process is reduced. We follow the international model, what we used to do for procuring equipment from abroad. Other important is the QA. There has been a number of studies done. General Khandare sir is aware of it, very clearly brought out in these studies. De-link QA from production stage. That is the only answer to sort it out, and have it only at trial and testing and acceptance stage. That too should be controlled by the user, that is the armed forces. This is a major change which will have a major impact on the private industry and the timelines. DRDO, HAL, etc. I have already spelled out, sir. Most important for any industry to survive is economic viability or a commercial viability. Just selling it to our armed forces may not give them economic or a commercial viability. Unless they are able to export this equipment, have a more number in the quantity they are able to sell at international levels, I don't think any industry can survive such kind of limited buyers equipment. So therefore, there is already a push by the Ministry of Defense and the Government of India for exports. And we've set targets, which I said we are going to surpass, and we are very confident on this. But we need to address certain issues. One is the defense industrial licensing is a big challenge, sir. We have put up number of suggestions. We had for last 1 year on this. We have deliberations with the ministry. The ministry has taken note of it. It is a multi-ministry case, so therefore it needs to be addressed. The second is export authorizations. Again, this issue is with the Ministry of Defense. Again, multi-ministry issue, and of course, line of credit. We are already functioning on this. We need to improve its SOP and the procedures, because Exim Bank cannot understand defense products. Therefore, the Ministry of Defense is also alive to it, that how we can find a better path to give a push to this kind of and of course, selection processes. Nobody is better than Ministry of Defense to shortlist, select, trial, evaluate an equipment for such kind of ventures. If we can achieve this, our exports will go exponentially. And we already have a credibility today, Indian defense industry, in the international fora. Only support it requires is not only the ministry, what it is already doing, but the user has to buy its equipment. Once the user buys that equipment, I can assure you, Indian industry cannot be stopped from exporting and competing at any level, whatever they are required to. And one of the recent initiatives by the Government of India and Ministry of Defense is formulation of a Defense Export Council. This is underway, and we are part of, SIDM is part of it. We are trying to steer it. Once it is established, we will get a greater boost on this. And I can reiterate on behalf of the Indian industry that all of us are in the right path. We need to continue on the same path with more focused approach and with more accelerated approach, and we will achieve what is the vision and the mission of Government of India. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, General Saini. We'll quickly ask Shruti to get on the stage. All yours. Yeah, please, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Firstly, I must say it's nice to hear the fact that there is will from the government and various institutions that we have to make the change, to grow the industry that much, and to grow the private sector. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the startup sentiment, how the entrepreneurs are thinking about it and where they are. But before I go there, there are a few key numbers that, facts that I would like you to see. And this is listed on Startup India. There are more than 1 lakh startups as of April 2023. Only 606 industrial licenses have been issued as of April 2023. Only 369 companies officially operate in defense sector. So although we talk about the startup environment, the numbers and the number of companies coming in the startup segment are very, very small, right? And that's why I want everyone to understand where startups are coming from, where entrepreneurs are coming from. Entrepreneurs are extremely passionate about the subject matter. They're extremely passionate about the technology they're working on. But they're also very limited by the resources that they have. So here are a few challenges that I'm going to list out that they are facing, right? First of it, and I think nobody objects here, is prolonged and time-consuming procurement process. Second, the strict regulations and standards, as it should be, because this is a defense segment. But this requires them to follow very complex and bureaucratic processes. Again, that is something that is very resource consuming, and startups do not have that resources to follow the processes, and they fall out. Right? And the examples is industrial licensing, we've talked about security clearance, testing. So these are a few examples, right? Then the another challenge that they have is the existing established and big players. Now, like L&T, Bharat Electronics, HAL, these big companies, they source components and technologies from startups and MSMEs, assemble them under their brand, and supply them to armed forces. And this is where the startups get stuck in the OEM segment. If the technology is too good, these OEMs get acquired by the big players. If there is enough competition in the market, the OEMs face uncertainty because they can be replaced at any point in time. So there is enough uncertainty for them to not know what will happen in the next few years, right? Another one is DRDO. DRDO serves as a gatekeeper. This way? All right? Okay. So DRDO serves as a gatekeeper of defense technology. They often commission companies and startups to develop technology. But afterwards, the technology is handed over to DPSUs or big players for scaling up. Now, this approach sidelines SME and startups, right? And also, to do this, SMEs and startups relinquish their IP. So they have nothing left. They've spent so much time and effort, so they don't really get much back from it. And last but not the least is the funding. There is substantial fund requirement to be part of the defense segment. And this is a hurdle and an entry barrier. So these are the issues that we need to fix. And I completely agree with everyone and acknowledge that there's a lot that the government is doing with Make in India, with IDEX program and IDEX Prime program, and Technology Development Fund, defense testing schemes, of course, the defense industrial corridors, but there is still so much that we have to do to improve the ecosystem And I believe, similar to the Western countries, Indian defense industrial complex can flourish, right? So I think one of the main things I also want to touch as a point for startups and is funding, right? A lot of people talk about funding winters for startups, and I will start by saying there is no funding winter. There is enough capital in India to fund a good startup that will yield 10x or 100x return of investment. Okay. Now, I will actually take a step back and start unpacking this issue a lot more. So it's easily understandable. Now, when we talk about substantial fund requirement, that comes from prolonged procurement period. Even when they get orders, raising working capital is a challenge due to limitations of the Indian financial ecosystem. Now, I will also unpack what Indian financial ecosystem means here, right? When we talk about Indian financial ecosystem, we mean banks, investors, NBFC, financial regulators, fintechs. I'm going to exclude financial markets because there are enough successes we have seen where defense companies have gone successfully IPO and they are sustaining well. So I'm going to exclude that. Now, many of the banks, investors, and NBFC who really want to support defense segment, and like we said, we are seeing a lot of interest. Um, the challenge is they do not understand the industry. And they do not understand enough to assess the risks properly. And let me unpack this statement a little bit more and go to the next level and start talking about one at a time. Now, the Indian banking system and NBFC, which can support startups with debts and loan, they have a very traditional approach, right? When they talk about unsecured loan, the only way to look at unsecured loan is by looking at 3 to 5 year revenue cycle. Startups do not have that revenue trend, so they don't get unsecured loan. Let's talk about secured loan. Okay, secured loan against land. Suppose, and I will give you an example here, a very live example. So if a company is able to say, okay, I have land, give me loan against the land so I can build my startup, the answer is no, because the mindset is more of a real estate industry. If we give you money against a land, it has to be used to develop the land only. You cannot use that money for any other project. And here is an example, a very classic example I will tell you. There was a startup called Anchor Labs that I was helping out. They worked in electronic warfare equipment. They won IDEX challenges. So that gave them 1.5 CR grant. The project value was 100 crores. They had 3 IDEX challenges that they won. So the project value that they had was 300 crores. They were looking at 30 crores of loan against a piece of land in the industrial corridor, defense industrial corridor that they had, which was valued at 100 crores. And no bank would give them that loan, including SBI, including SIDB. No bank gave them the loan. Because against loan is a security, great, but they still do not have the revenue to pay the interest. And the banking system still sees interest as their working model. That's their profitability. If you cannot pay that month on month, you do not get the loan, full stop. Right? There's another way of looking at it, project-based. Again, the gestation period of a defense project is much longer than 12 months, so that doesn't work. Once you get confirmed order, working capital is based on 3 to 5 years. So it doesn't work. So banking system, NBFC doesn't work for startups. Now let's talk about private capital. We talk about venture capital, private equity, angels, high net worth individuals, right? That's another side. There is a challenge. Again, there is a limited understanding of defense industry. They do not understand the culture, the ethos, and the passion that goes with the defense industry. Okay? Plus, they are all looking for reference cases. Who has had an exit, successful exit from a defense company, who can say we got a 10x or a 100x return? There are no use cases like that. So they're all reluctant. Then again, the ROI gestation period is 5 to 6 years. Too long for them. They're looking at short-term investments, right? The associated risks of unsecured, assured procurement is also an issue. And therefore, they would not invest where they are not sure that they will get any return on investment. Okay, we'll move on to be more specific here. Let's move on to private equity. Private equities do not look at a ticket size under 250 crores. So the only companies, defense companies who qualify for those kind of are Adani's, Reliance, Bell. Those are the companies who will get it. Startups do not fall under that category. Venture capital funds, they do not have the mandate. Many of them don't have the mandate from their LPs to invest in defense. The ones who do, the fund life is much shorter than the gestation period. So it doesn't work for them. Then we can talk about large family offices, family investment offices, or high net worth individuals. People, again, they do not understand the industry, so they want to follow the VCs and the PEs. And if VCs and PEs are not investing, they will not invest in such startups. Whereas the high net worth individuals and the family offices who do understand the defense industry, Reliance, Adani, Tata, they already have their own defense industries. So they will support with their funding for their own segments as opposed to the startup segment. So startups, due to all these challenges, there's a huge funding gap in the startup segment. Okay, now I'll take you again to the entrepreneur environment or mindset. They are brilliant startups. They love the technology that they are building. They are passionate. They want to be part of the unicorn circle. They are happy to be funded and acquired by whoever would give them money. So what is happening? There are Western countries and global companies investing in these startups, and hence we are talking about brilliant startups not actually serving India but going away, right? And I'll give you a couple of examples here. CloudSec, this is an AI cyber risk and threat intelligence platform. It was heavily invested by Mass Mutual Ventures in Singapore. vJungle, they unified firewalls and gateways for cybersecurity. They got funding by Orbit startups in China and Artisan VCs in Australia. They did not get Indian funding. Pixel, they were hyperspatial imagery space data company. They were invested by Google and Accenture. So again, I will come back to the fact we have people who want to build, but there are limitations that they are not able to do it. I want to give a few recommendations of how we can go forward for startups. It's a multi-tier approach and a series of changes that we need to do. And we need to learn from what DARPA US is doing and Defense and Security Accelerator in UK is doing. They give grants, they give soft loans, and they give contracts to sustain defense startups through product development and approval processes. So there is, sustainability there, and there is visibility of contracts that they have. Similarly, we've got IDEX, brilliant program. We already give grants. Now, I'm going to make a suggestion here, a very important suggestion. We should add the provision of giving loans for gap funding. So if a equipment that costs 10 crores, 1.5 crore is being given as a grant, give 8.5 crores as a gap funding with 10% interest over 2 years. And I will explain all this in a much more detail. Now, this loan can be recovered from the project invoices. When they are going to give invoices to get their payments, you can recover that loan money. So the money is not gone, right? In a way, what we can do is use the interest from the loan to refund the part of the grant that was given to the company. It almost pays back, right? It will create a circle of financing. You've given a grant, you've given gap funding, there's interest on gap funding, that interest comes back to you, which you can reinvest in the second company. So the same financial system and finances can be used in a much better way. And I'll explain this with an example. Suppose there's a 100 crore project which has a minimum order quantity of 10 crores, 10 units, and each unit costs 10 crores. So that means there is 20, and there's also 20% profitability built in. So that means the company needs, the startup needs 80 crore to actually fulfill the project, right? If you give 1.5 crore as a grant, 8.5 crore is on 10% interest for 2 years. This interest accounts to 1.8 crore. So you've already got 30 lakhs more than the grant that you gave, right? You give a moratorium for 2 invoices. Hence, the company is able to build 4 crores, which is 20 crores, 20 crores on the first 2 invoices, 2 crores, 2 crores in the first 2 invoices as their kitty, and therefore pays 1.3 crore on every equipment, the rest of the 8 equipments that it delivers back to the company. You've got the equipment, the startup has the funding, and everything can move more smoothly. And that's my suggestion. So this is truly promoting startups. Then we can come about Indian banking system and NBFC. Now, we need to educate them. We need to start talking about defense project-based loans. So create those kind of education there. So update the guidelines. It can be done based on project profit equity sharing or secure a loan against land that can be updated, working capital against confirm orders. So those are the updates. With private equity, again, we need to educate them. We need to create reference cases where 10x and 100x returns have been received. Fact, any private equity who invests, they are looking for profitability. If they do not get 10x or 100x returns, they don't want to invest there. And once we can create those reference cases, LPs will automatically give mandates to VCs. VCs will accommodate the gestation period, no problem. And, single family offices will automatically follow. So you will have this whole follow-up of the private segment that is coming. So I've got 1 minute more, sorry. Then I'm going to push towards the R&D. And of course, we've already said, associate R&Ds with universities. Universities have incubation centers, so that will automatically support startups and the private segment. Defense procurement process, I will suggest 3 improvements there. Simplify and digitize, clear roles and responsibility, remove bureaucracy. So for example, if there is a request that has been made and there is an objection at any point, rather than putting it in a file and sending back, have a joint video call with everyone in the line of chain and ask the questions, close it, send it forward, done. We've done that in private segment, right? Monitor and govern efficiency of procurement process. So things need to happen within a month, 2 month period. close that, remove L1 concept from order confirmation, give 5-year projection of repeat orders, um, and of course the DRDO. So we want DRDO commissioning startups to, actually giving the scale-up work back to these startups. Um, we want them to accept the IP of the SMEs and startups. So these companies need to continue to get royalties, so they have motivation to continue to do R&D, even if they relinquish the scale-up aspect. And this will promote the R&D segment. So those are a few suggestions. And then, of course, I will close by saying there are a few success cases we have, like Big Bang Boom Solutions. We have Saga Defense Engineering. We have Optimized Electrotech. These are all startups that have done really well, and we would want many more names to join this segment. Thank you.
Thank you, Shruti. I think we've left with very little time, or actually negative time, for question answers. Thanks for giving us a startup reality. I think the nation now needs to educate the sharks more than anybody else, because neither the banks nor the big industries, nobody is going to give you fund to do what you want to do. If 1 lakh startups and you have only 329 hanging around in the defense, and that too very small kind. So I'm actually seriously thinking, should we bank on startups? Or we should not bank on startups? I'm just thinking loud, not that I'm suggesting something. This is because you've given a scary story about the startup, because I'm not worried about startup progressing. As a military man, I'm seeing startup looking after me for next 30 years. If he is not going to get fund, if he's not going to hold on, if he's not a big industry, he's going to run away after 3 years. What will I do with this equipment? Why will I buy it from you? So that's how maybe somewhere the sharks and everybody has to get together to bring the startups up. A small question to General Saini. What if the world stops supplying raw material to the industry? Will we have any weapon system with the armed forces which will be self-sustaining?
I can answer this by counter-questioning. If same thing happens to US, would it be self-sufficient? So international commercial dynamics don't work on one country stopping something and everything comes to a standstill. There are multiple chains. We are only looking at convenient chains. Once you stop something, now the current geostrategic situation has compelled us to be more self-sustaining. We were not thinking in that accelerated pace. So that is what happens if something stops coming. There are challenges of rare earth metals, chips, and all these things, but everybody finds the way. And those who will stop it, they also will bear the brunt of, commercial aspects. So it is not easy for anybody. And I'll further say, even the USA does not have everything of its own. It has a set of industries, set of countries which supports, and these are very dynamic. But it keeps its multiple options, so does India. And today's India has matured on this aspect. I don't think the world will come to an end if this kind of a thing happens.
So I'm asking something, I don't want an answer to it, just leaving it open. So that means the AtmaNirbhar Bharat definition which we have in our mind and mind needs a little tweaking, because it doesn't mean that you're going to be everything made in India and the equipment comes forward. Because mathematics say that 30%, 40%, 50%, 60% indigenization contents makes you an Indian product at various levels, 30, 40, 50, 60. If you do the mathematics to this, let's say 50%. 50% as it is I'm buying from outside, now the figures have changed. And balance 50%, I'm allowed to buy 40% or 50% from abroad and still call it Make in India. So finally you'll have about 60 to 70% which has been imported from abroad. the equipment which is with us. So this is the mathematics. Anyway, we'll just leave it to that because AtmaNirbhar Bharat.
What's happening now in this, in each system which you will buy, there will be core subsystems which will be had to be made in India. So the core technology in the system will be make in India and other paraphernalia that can be imported. So when RFP will be floated, there will be listing in that in this electronics, this will be India. This will be India. So those are the critical components which you don't want to be dependent on other sides. Subcritical and not very, very critical components can be part of that outside parts. So future RFP, you will find this coming up into that.
Just to add to one line, there is a term called ownership and control. That is what we are emphasizing on when we are manufacturing anything, whether it is 30%, 40% Indian or 60% Indian. The person who's delivering it to us has to have ownership and control preferably. Secondly, when you are importing something and you have given an assurance and a contractual obligation of supply it, you are ensuring that your sub tiers are contractually bound to supply this in whatever may be the condition. So that is where the IPR controls happens. And they are dictated by terms and references, not across the board, for a quantity, for a time, for certain modifications and upgrades, etc.
Very nice. One point which the Deputy Chief brought out about the JSQRs, we want the moon. I'll give you an example here. We're talking about the BMD. For the audience who do not know BMD, something to do with Iron Dome. These days, the Iron Dome word is there. Don't worry, India also has an Iron Dome. So talking about that, this project started in 2002 as a technology demonstration by the DRDO. Suddenly they realized, okay, if a missile system comes like this, the trigger has to be with the Army or the Air Force or the Navy. So how about invoking them? So in 2008, 6 years, 7 years down the line, when the project was already up, the Army, Navy, Air Force were brought in and they gave their JSQRs now. Okay, this is what we want. And they gave 49 things which this BMD, which started in 2002, was not having in it. And they called it as 49 essentials. And that is when somewhere I was roped in and I had to give a presentation to the NSA saying that, yes, the BMD started by DRDO, Army wants this, but what the Army wants today will come in 2050 because it's an entirely new system. That's how the brains were applied by the Forge. And then a compromise was struck, okay, out of this 49, how much can the DRDO do in a time frame? So finally the BMD system is up and you have some of your cities which are safe with this Iron Dome. When I go to buy a iPhone 15 Pro, that's the thing these days, young boys and girls, I don't carry a JSQR with me. I just go to the market, see that mobile, fit it into my operational requirement. Okay, this is what I want my operational requirement from the mobile. And I buy it. How about doing that with all of them? If all your product, whatever you all are doing is available on a portal, and my vice chief has got a power of up to 300 crores, he can buy anything off the shelf. He goes onto the shelf, compares it with the op need. If that op need is being capped by this particular product, forget about the JSQ, let's buy it and put it in the field. Things will, you have to come up with a total transformation and reforms in this whole game plan.
That is what the industry is also looking at. Look at majority of aspirations being met, not the 100%. That can be met in a spiral approach, what General Manjinder also brought out. And I think the government is alive to it and they are looking at spiral way of procurement so that we meet immediate needs and progressively improve the technologies.
The soldier who's at the border knows that his weapon system, his ammunition and his protective gear is the cheapest in the world. L1. This is what you were mentioning, that now we have to get out of this L1. The soldier knows, जो मैंने पहना है सबसे सस्ता है, जो मेरे पास बंदूक है सबसे सस्ती थी, जो इसमें वेपन जो ammunition लगा है वो भी सबसे सस्ता था. So we have to change this concept of getting him the best. But how do we do that with the industry is what is left to us. How about, I suggested this to Mr. Amitabh Kant yesterday. How about you writing the DAP next year instead of we writing the DAP for you. Because I was also co-author and I was very unhappy with this DAP, which received 10,000 pages of observation from March till September 2020. It was DPP 2020 draft. And the only change which came about was DAP kar diya usko, because procurement ki jagah acquisition kar dete hain. And there were 10,000 pages, 200 reams of observation on it. Observation came from industry and the military. But overruling power was with the acquisition administrators, the way we call them, or managers. So how about you writing a next DAP for us? And then let the deputy chief thereafter play around with it with the DG acquisition. But aap likhiye usko.
Sir, I can only reiterate what happened since you are party to the whole process. Sometimes some players overkill it, and it happened in the DAP also. Notwithstanding, Indian industry was totally involved in the feedback, discussions and deliberations throughout the process. There are certain aspirations which do not match with government policies. One. Secondly, there are also, commercial aspirations which counter the basic taxation system or procurement system. That is why it gets overruled, certain suggestions. But having dealt with for 6 months before it finally came out, I think most of the aspirations of industry were put into place and accepted. There were certain financial reservations which had to be introduced, which I feel needs to be taken off and made more liberalized, particularly the post-contract management aspects. But industry, we will be participating. We are ready as and when this DAP review happens. And rather, we would be happy if DPM also we can be stakeholders and suggest. There are a lot of issues which industry raises and we can contribute. Finally, it is the approval, but industry is ready to contribute, participate, give their suggestions. Our very, very specialists and senior people are ready to be part of the system.
Thank you. Anybody? Any question? 1, 2, 3. Okay. All yours.
Thank you, everyone, for such an enlightening session and for sharing your invaluable insights. Can we have a round of applause for them, please?